Once upon a time, there were three close friends named John, Sarah, and Matthew. During the summer vacation, they set out on an adventure to escape the boredom of their village. By venturing deep into the forest, they had heard rumors about an old cabin, known as the cursed house in their village. It was said that the cabin had been abandoned years ago and was home to terrible things. One morning, the three friends set off into the forest. Armed with their supplies and flashlights, they were determined to embark on this adventure. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the trees grew thicker and the silence grew more profound. Finally, they reached the spot where the cabin was located. John found a stone to break the lock on the door, and they cautiously entered. The inside of the cabin was dark, so they turned on their flashlights. The interior was dusty and filled with old furniture, and the air was filled with the sharp stench of decay. As they explored, the three children began to witness strange occurrences. Paintings on the walls seemed to vanish on their own. Doors mysteriously opened and closed, and they started to hear eerie noises. However, these kids were brave, and fear did not overcome them. Upon entering one room, they found a peculiar notebook filled with strange symbols. Flipping through its pages, they uncovered the dark secrets of the cabin's past. Little did they know that learning these secrets would bring them great peril. Suddenly, all the lights in the house went out, and the doors locked behind them. The three children were trapped inside, and strange creatures and ghosts began to emerge. John, Sarah, and Matthew started to run in fear, but the cursed house closed in around them like a sinister trap. Finally, they reached the focal point of the cursed house, an old family portrait. The portrait depicted the family who had once owned this house and caused the curse. Once again, it was adorned with strange symbols and dark rituals. As they approached the portrait, all the ghosts and creatures in the house closed in on them. The three children trembled in fear. Under the influence of the cursed house, however, they decided to act bravely together. They managed to break the portrait, breaking the curse that had plagued the house. The house trembled and then fell silent. When they stepped outside, the cursed house was now in ruins. The three friends would never forget the terrifying experience, but at least they had come out unscathed. However, when they returned to their village, no one recognized them. Their families, friends, and even the village itself had changed. They realized that the time they had spent inside the cursed house had been many years. They could no longer return to their village or their old lives. The cursed house had made them disappear, and no one ever saw them again. In a small town's outskirts, there was a mysterious and cursed forest known as the Dark Forest. The forest's tales were enough to frighten even the bravest souls. It was rumored to be a place where strange occurrences took place, and those who entered never returned. Our story begins with two close friends, Sarah and Michael, who dared to enter this cursed forest. Both were determined to unravel the mysteries of this forest and prove or disprove the legends. One night, a map they stumbled upon and an old bookstore led them into this deadly adventure. When they reached the border of the dark forest, an immediate change in the atmosphere was palpable. The chirping of birds and the gentle breeze had disappeared, replaced by an eerie silence. Trees had gnarled into shapes resembling human faces, and these faces appeared to bear grim expressions. The level of light rapidly diminished, and Sarah and Michael found themselves engulfed in what felt like a dark sea without flashlights. They desperately tried to discern their surroundings. As their eyes adjusted, they beheld a terrifying scene. Symbols on the tree trunks were glowing, and dark figures were emerging around them, slowly approaching. These figures had red eyes that emitted an unsettling crimson light. Sarah and Michael realized that they were lost in the forest, and surrounded by these bizarre creatures, they tried to move quickly, but with every step, the forest grew darker, and the path became more convoluted. Suddenly, they began hearing strange sounds all around them. Distant sobs and moans seemed to follow their every step. Sarah and Michael's hearts raced, but they couldn't pinpoint the source of these haunting sounds. Following these slowly approaching sounds, shadows in the forest began to move rapidly. Sarah and Michael desperately tried to observe their surroundings, but darkness and silence enveloped everything. As they struggled to understand what was happening, the mysteries of the dark forest deepened at every turn, and both of them became hopelessly lost within the terrifying forest. Newcastle, a peaceful small town, was always a haven for Samantha and Daniel, two close friends who enjoyed a quiet life. However, beyond the town's borders lay a forest shrouded in unsettling mystery. Known as the Shadows Forest, the terrifying rumors surrounding this place kept everyone at bay. Tales of those who ventured into the forest, only to disappear without a trace, had earned it the name Shadows Forest. One summer day, Samantha and Daniel stumbled upon an old diary in a local library. Within the pages of a weathered bookstore, the diary was filled with enigmatic maps of the Shadows Forest. Samantha and Daniel gathered their courage and decided to embark on this perilous adventure. Upon reaching the outskirts of the Shadows Forest, they immediately sensed a change in the atmosphere. The songs of birds and the gentle rustling of leaves had vanished, replaced by an eerie silence. The trunks of the trees twisted into shapes resembling human faces, and these faces bore expressions of profound unease. The level of light rapidly dwindled, and Samantha and Daniel found themselves engulfed in what felt like an abyss of darkness. Without flashlights, they desperately strained their eyes to perceive their surroundings. As their vision adjusted, they beheld a terrifying scene. Symbols on the tree trunks glowed ominously, and dark figures began to emerge around them, slowly advancing. These figures had eyes that glowed crimson, casting an unsettling red light. Samantha and Daniel realized they were lost in the forest. Surrounded by these bizarre creatures, they attempted to move swiftly, but with each step, the forest grew darker, and the path became more convoluted. It was as if the forest itself resisted their presence, guarding its secrets fiercely. Suddenly, strange sounds echoed from all directions. Distant sobs, mournful wails, and eerie whispers seemed to follow their every move. Samantha and Daniel's hearts raced, but they couldn't pinpoint the source of these haunting sounds. As they followed these slowly advancing sounds, the shadows in the forest began to move rapidly. Samantha and Daniel desperately tried to scan their surroundings, but darkness and silence enveloped everything. They stumbled upon a clearing, and in its center, they discovered a weathered and ancient stone altar. Symbols carved into the stone's surface seemed to writhe and shift as if alive. Samantha and Daniel exchanged fearful glances, realizing that they were in the heart of the forest's mystery. In the eerie glow of the symbols, the shadows around them coalesced into sinister forms. Phantoms with crimson eyes emerged from the darkness surrounding the two friends. The ground trembled beneath their feet as the forest itself seemed to awaken. The phantoms began to chant in a language Samantha and Daniel could not comprehend. Their voices were otherworldly and filled with malevolence. The very air grew heavy with dread, and the symbols on the stone altar pulsed with an unholy energy. Samantha and Daniel knew they had trespassed into something beyond their understanding. The forest's secrets were older and darker than they could have ever imagined. With a sinking feeling, they realized they were mere pawns in a sinister ritual. As the sinister phantoms chanted, and the symbols on the stone altar pulsed with malevolent energy, Samantha and Daniel felt a growing sense of dread and helplessness. They knew they were trapped in the heart of the Shadow's forest, entangled in a dark and ancient ritual. Desperation gripped them, and they attempted to flee the clearing, but an invisible force held them in place. The chanting of the phantoms grew louder, and the crimson glow of their eyes intensified, enveloping Samantha and Daniel in an eerie crimson haze. The forest itself seemed to come alive, with the trees swaying ominously and the ground trembling beneath their feet. It was as if the very essence of the Shadow's forest conspired against them. Suddenly, a colossal and grotesque figure emerged from the darkness, towering over Samantha and Daniel. It had the body of a man, but the features of a nightmarish creature. Its eyes, like blazing coals, bore into their souls. The abomination spoke in a guttural and ancient tongue, a language that seemed to pierce their minds with terror. Samantha and Daniel couldn't understand the words, but they felt a malevolent power radiating from the creature. As the creature continued its unnerving incantations, the symbols on the stone altar began to glow brighter. The forest's shadows twisted and contorted, merging into a swirling vortex of darkness. It became clear that the forest itself was a gateway to something unimaginable, and Samantha and Daniel had unwittingly unlocked it. With their last shreds of courage, they attempted to resist the overwhelming darkness. Samantha recited a prayer from her childhood, while Daniel tried to remember a protective chant his grandmother had taught him, but their efforts were feeble against the ancient evil that surrounded them. As the ritual reached its zenith, a deafening roar echoed through the clearing, shaking the very foundations of the forest. The abomination's eyes blazed with unholy fire, and the symbols on the stone altar erupted in a blinding flash of crimson light. In an instant, Samantha and Daniel were consumed by the darkness, their screams drowned out by the cacophony of the ritual. The forest itself seemed to recoil, as if it had devoured their very souls. When the ritual finally subsided, the clearing was empty, and an eerie silence settled over the Shadow's forest once more. The ancient evil had claimed its sacrifice, and Samantha and Daniel were lost to the darkness forever.